A History of Facial Measurement, visual essay by Jessica Helfand. Physiognomy is the ancient practice of judging a person's character from their facial features. This practice, now discredited, is linked to racial stereotyping and criminal profiling. Two faces appear in profile. A wooden chair includes a contraption for viewing the face. Johann Caspar Lavater, 1741 to 1801, showed how faces can be compared and measured. A disheveled man grimaces in fear or surprise. A man in formal attire pokes his face with wires. Pioneering French neurologist Duchenne de Boulogne experimented with electrical probes and photography to trigger particular facial expressions. The side of a man's face is being measured with an instrument. In the 1880s, a police officer, Alphonse Bertillon, developed anthropometry, a system of facial measurement to identify criminals. He influenced criminologists around the globe. The top of a man's head is being measured with calipers. Below, a man measures the length and width of another man's head. Coming from a family of statisticians, Bertillon created streamlined methods for measuring heads and faces. A man's face is labeled with numbers. Bertillon's diagrams helped police identify facial features. A man's face is labeled with numbers by Alphonse Bertillon. Photos in a grid show details of men's faces, including brows, chins, eyes and nose, and ears. Bertillon is known as the father of the mugshot. His photographs were used to identify suspects. Mugshots are glued to a printed card filled with handwritten descriptions in French. In the late 19th century, when photography was still relatively new, police used detailed written descriptions to identify suspects. Below a mugshot of a female suspect is a printed card filled in with handwritten descriptions. Created by the New York City Police Department, this Bertillon identification card has photographs on one side and anthropometric measurements on the other. Two dark-skinned men are drawn in front and profile views. The images are labeled criminal and civil insane. This diagram of so-called Negroid criminals from Crime and the Man, 1939, identified various degrees of insanity by classifying facial features like lip thickness, hair texture, and brow ridges. Top. Text reads, large eyes express a large soul. Middle. Low scowling eyebrows indicate a repulsive, forbidding disposition. Bottom. A hanging nose indicates selfishness and dishonesty. In his 1884 book, The Human Face, A.E. Willis linked facial features to characteristics like disobedience and subterfuge. 4 different heads are labeled nervous or mental, bilious, sanguine, and lymphatic or excessive vital. Joseph Blumenthal's 1916 text Character Analysis correlated personality types to facial features. Businesses could use such judgments in hiring. A photograph of a woman has a blank gray rectangle where her features would be. Physogs, a 1939 British card game by Jacques Penry, came with mix and match cards of different facial character types. Now, the same photograph appears with 3 cards placed in the gray area: eyes, nose, mouth. The features come from different people. Now, a photograph of a man appears with an empty rectangle in the middle. The face is filled in with 3 cards: eyes, nose, mouth, from the game Physogs, 1939. Top. A man and woman face each other. His nose is straight, hers is small and upturned. Text. The concave type nose, which represents receptiveness and gentleness, and the Roman nose, willpower and aggressiveness, suggests the most preferable mating. Bottom. A man and woman with large noses face each other. Text. The Roman nose indicates more or less willpower and aggressiveness, but two in one family may prove to be one too many. From Character Reading by Observation, 1933. In a historic photograph, a grimacing man is poked with wires. Computer code says the man strongly displays fear, with smaller parts of disgust, sadness, and surprise. Analysis using Amazon recognition. Software created by Amazon, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and Face++ in China can detect faces, confirm identity, and interpret emotions. Scenarios include policing, marketing, and employee verification. Phrenology measures the human head to assess character. Bumps on the skull were thought to indicate a person's emotional tendencies. Geometric lines radiate from the ear of a face in profile. The segments are labeled love to opposite sex, love to humanity, ambition, honor, faith, hope, benevolence, and intellect. From George Labar's Why You Are What You Are, 1922. The parts of a male face and head have labels such as less development of the religious faculties and location of the pugilistic instinct. Heads, Faces, Types, and Races, 1910, included chapters on various racial categories, including Jews, Negroes, and Turks. Diagrams of four male heads are labeled constancy, the bump of reason, love of children, and the bump of courage. Fortune Telling for Everyone, published in the 1930s, advocated the use of astrology, tea leaf reading, palmistry, and phrenology to judge character. A head is diagrammed from top, bottom, and side views. John Bryce Adams defined humanology, 1922, as the periscope through which we observe the spirit, the soul, and the immortal principles of humanity. A man's face is labeled in three layers: intellect, brow, force, nose, and appetite, mouth. Vaught's Practical Character Reader, 1902, assigned qualities such as cunning, deceit, and reliability to features of the head and face. Horizontal lines circle a man's skull like a globe. The bands are labeled heaven, earth, hell. From Vaught's Practical Character Reader, 1902. Two profiles are labeled deceitful eye, deceitful chin, and deceitful mouth. From Vaught's Practical Character Reader, 1902. Lines divide a head into regions such as home life and security and wealth. Holmes Merton's Descriptive Mentality, 1883, applied phrenology to domestic life. A woman's head is divided into numerous parts, containing illustrated scenes of families, couples, and people gathering. From Descriptive Mentality, 1883. Norms and ideals. Artists and scientists have long sought to calculate the ideal geometry of the human face. Such ideals are based on exclusionary notions of physical perfection and racial identity. A skull has been drawn with ruler and compass to explore ideal human proportions. 3 drawings show heads being measured with devices. Arthur MacDonald's Man and Abnormal Man, 1905, was a U.S. government publication intended to determine, quote, normal growth patterns in children and assess the need for therapeutic or medical intervention. A semicircular craniometer is pinned to the head at the top of the skull and in each ear. Scottish lawyer George Combe published this image of a craniometer, a device for measuring the external dimensions of the skull, in 1835. 2 heads are wrapped in networks of thin, flexible bands. Swiss surgeon Rudolf Ulrich Kreunlein, 1847 to 1910, made significant scientific contributions to neurosurgery, including a craniometer for measuring the skull. A wheel centered on the ear connects to various attachments for measuring the angles of the face. Craniology, along with anatomy, archaeology, ethnography, language, and religion, was a principal chapter in the Dictionnaire des Sciences Anthropologiques, 1883. A technical drawing of a woman is annotated with detailed measurements. Ergonomics was pioneered by industrial designer Henry Dreyfuss. Josephine, 1969, represented the average American woman. She was based on data from the fashion industry. A transparent plane passes through a man's head like a CAT scan. Commissioned by the U.S. Army in the 1980s, this automated headboard device helped maximize the comfort and fit of headgear. A seated woman wears a cage-like contraption over her face and head. A man in a lab coat works with the device. Cosmetics pioneer Max Factor invented his beauty micrometer, 1932, for the movie industry. It measured a woman's face to determine how much makeup to apply for filming. A woman's face is diagrammed with delicate lines and numbers. Around the world, beauty is believed to reside within the divine proportions of the golden section, demonstrated here by American actress Sylvia Sidney. A face drawn with triangles has a faceted, crystal-like form. Masks like this one help beauty seekers and their plastic surgeons map the ideal distances between features. A seated woman has a measuring device fitted to her head. A man is working with the device. German professor and racial researcher Robert Burger Willingen invented his plastometer in 1930. It was later used by the Nazis to determine alleged racial characteristics. Evolution and heredity. The belief that humans evolved from animals predates Darwin's scientific theory of evolution. Studies of heredity were sometimes used to support race-based ideologies. In a grid of drawings, a frog gradually becomes a human face. Johann Caspar Lavater, 1741 to 1801, demonstrates his theory of how the frog evolved over time to become human. In a grid of drawings, a small primate head becomes a human head. Petrus Camper, a Dutch physician in the 18th century, was a pioneer of comparative anatomy. Top. 3 different heads are labeled appetite, force, and intellect, from Vaught's Practical Character Reader, 1902. Bottom. Faces with different ethnic characteristics are assembled like a police lineup, from How to Read Faces, 1880. A series of profiles are drawn one inside the other. At the center is a dog and an elephant. Nelson Seisen's book, How to Recognize Strangers, 1895, links people and animals. 2 sets of drawings show father, mother, and child. The top drawing explains how 2 homely parents may have a beautiful child. The bottom drawing explains how 2 handsome parents may have a homely child. American cartoonist Amron Scheinfeld was a self-taught genetics scholar. You and Heredity, 1939, explains how traits are inherited across generations. The top drawing shows 2 blonde parents with 4 blonde children. The bottom drawing shows 2 dark-haired parents whose children have dark, light, and red hair. From Amron Scheinfeld, You and Heredity, 1939. A woman with Asian features has her face measured by a man with a device. Bruno Beger was a German racial anthropologist, ethnologist, and eugenicist who traveled to Tibet in 1938 to study the development of the Nordic race in that region.